Let's not sugarcoat it, but what transpired between New York and Indiana was nothing short of a disaster. The referees completely lost the plot, and Caitlin Clark was thrown into chaos without a life jacket. This may have been one of the worst officiated games of the season, and it wasn't just bad calls. It was a one-sided robbery that was done in plain sight, leaving fans and even players in disbelief. Sophie Cunningham had to jump on TikTok not for fun, but to express just how ridiculous things got. That's how insane it was. And then there's Stephanie White, the Fever's coach. Look, she talks well in interviews, we'll give her that, but when it comes to real-time decisions on the court, she's fumbling hard. Caitlin Clark was getting mauled, literally fouled 4 times on one play, and the refs, they just swallowed their whistles. Meanwhile, Indiana gets whistled for every soft touch, and New York gets away with everything short of a body slam. 31 free throws to 9. Let that sink in. How do you even explain that when it's Indiana, who kept attacking the rim all night? They weren't settling for deep shots, they were in the paint drawing contact, but it didn't matter. The refs just turned a blind eye. The disrespect for this team, especially for Caitlin Clark, is getting out of control, and honestly, it's starting to look intentional. Now, let's talk about the coaching. Stephanie White had Caitlin cooking early, and then suddenly she takes the ball out of her hands. Why? Who makes that decision? You have one of the most talented playmakers in women's basketball history, and you're using her like a decoy. That's not strategy, that's sabotage. Even Aaliyah, the only player attempting to get her the ball during the first half of the game, was Kelsey Mitchell. When Caitlin noticed the discrepancies, they iced her out, and what transpired due to coaching mistakes and referees who were obviously biased, the Fever blew a 12-point lead. And it doesn't end there. Let's go back to the game's most important moment, when Natasha Cloud clearly fouls Caitlin Clark. The referees do nothing, and if they made that call, Caitlin would probably win the game, but they let it go, just like they've been doing for the previous 3 games in a row. It's almost like there's a hidden playbook now, and they want to beat the Fever hack Caitlin Clark and hope the referees look the other way. It's funny and sad, but back to the court. When the pressure mounted, Caitlin was left stranded with no help. The inbounds play was a joke, the defense fell apart, and Natasha Howard walked in and scored back-to-back baskets with no one even trying to stop the bleeding. Some people have turned what was once criticism into a strange obsession. These same people who once freaked out over a dolphin noise now want her punished for having a generational talent. Let's face it, if Caitlin Clark had been permitted to run the point like she did in college, if she had control for the entire 40 minutes, the Fever didn't just lose this game, it was stolen from them. Without a doubt, Indiana wins this game by a score of 20, but instead we got this shoddy jumble of poor coaching, biased referees, and lost opportunities, and now we're left wondering how many more games will be stolen away before something changes. This wasn't just a defeat, it was a game where everything seemed to be stacked against Indiana, and at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark was once again punished for her outstanding play. Meanwhile, as fans were still fuming over that game-stealing incident, Gemma threw gasoline on the fire by calling Caitlin Clark a racist. Yes, this was all because of a single heated moment with Ryan Howard on the court. There was no evidence, no real context, just a reckless accusation, but guess what? New footage just surfaced, shattering her story into tiny fragments.
Mel Hill got busted, Steve. She got exposed once again. It looks like in September, Jamel sent a lengthy tweet saying Caitlin Clark doesn't get the same hate.
Now that Jamala Hill has officially jumped the shark, we need to discuss what happened. She took a basketball game between Caitlin Clark and Ryan Howard and somehow turned it into a racist narrative that is blowing up in her face more quickly than a cheap fireworks display.
This is season 2 of Caitlin Clark and the Fever, and now we have a new Jamel Hill rant. She is one person that's been pretty vocal about everything. The Angel Reese situation, now this Ryan Howard thing, which I thought was not a big deal whatsoever. Reported on it yesterday. She did kind of get into Caitlin Clark's head, kind of psyched her out. I believe that's why Caitlin Clark played so bad. But some new footage has emerged of the incident.
Since context is important, allow me to set the scene. We're discussing a regular season WNBA game where 2 rivals got into a heated argument. Ryan Howard was defending Caitlin Clark physically and attempting to get inside her head by saying derogatory things. This is standard basketball fare that occurs in every game at every level.
Caitlin Clark taking it back, and you can see the hold there. Then Ryan Howard doesn't like that. And there's some
Now in her second season as a professional, Caitlin Clark has obviously mastered how to handle stressful situations. As a result, when Ryan Howard got in her face, Clark didn't panic. Instead, she simply looked directly at her and remarked, "I'm not scared of you." That concludes the entire conversation, but somehow Jamil Hill turned that straightforward moment into a full-fledged racism accusation. Yes, you read correctly. A cool, collected response was abruptly called racist, but let's face it, this was just high-level basketball intensity as Howard tried to shake her, and Clark stood her ground. There was no foul play, no drama, just one player refusing to be bullied. That's not racism, that's mental toughness, and that's exactly the kind of energy you want from a professional athlete who is focused and fearless locked in. If defending yourself is now controversial, we have much more serious issues to discuss.
You're in Atlanta! All in her face, bro. Like, Atlanta's supposed to be the place where they just target Caitlin Clark. She was doing nothing, bro. She was dribbling. She's pressing her, hacking her the whole way. They hacked Caitlin the whole damn game, bro.
When Emily Hill saw that, she immediately used her perverted reasoning to play the racist card. The mental gymnastics required to think that Caitlin Clark standing her ground would win Olympic gold if stupidity were a sport. But here's the real deal. Fresh footage just came out, and it utterly destroys confidence. Jimmy Hill's story is crystal clear in 4K, with no misunderstanding or guesswork, and you can see exactly what happened. Ryan Howard was the one who got physical, trash-talking and attempting to intimidate, and Clark simply responded calmly and confidently before continuing to hoops. There isn't even the slightest hint of racism in that clip, unless you're desperately trying to invent drama where none exists.
Instead of Jamil Hill called racism against Caitlin Clark, competitors claims hatred is all made up. How is hatred all made up when you got fans yelling, "You're in Atlanta!" all in her face, bro? Like, Atlanta's supposed to be the place where they just target Caitlin Clark. She was doing nothing, bro. She was dribbling. She's pressing her, hacking her the whole way.
This is what makes Hill's behavior even more absurd. She is disregarding the pattern of targeted behavior that Caitlin Clark has experienced since joining the league. This isn't an isolated instance. Clark has frequently had to deal with players that try to physically threaten her, beat her up, and get inside her brain. Howard's actions were merely the most recent illustration of this concerning pattern.
Caitlin Clark, by the way, absolutely silenced everybody yesterday. The woke media was all on her. I hate to even mention this complete jackass, Jamil Hill, and others were all in her business. It's white privilege. She hits these threes, man. I don't give a damn if it's white, black, or green privilege. Jamil Hill, she blames the media for covering Caitlin Clark. She's tremendous on television. What a missed opportunity for the national media to really evaluate who she was as a person. Why? Whereas it feels like our black athletes get the same amount of coverage.
The irony in G. Hill's perspective is simply absurd. She is out here supporting the person who initiated the drama while disparaging the person who refused to back down. Let that sink in. Hill call out Caitlin Clark for standing her ground, not for disrespect or trash talk, but for standing her ground. In what world does that make you the villain only in G. Hill's warped version of reality? What's even more absurd is how Hill attempted to portray this entire situation as simply normal competition, seriously defending the instigator and blaming the one who didn't fold. That isn't analysis. It's an agenda.
Here's what LeBron James just said. Go ahead and play this clip. This is him with Redick.
The one thing that I love that she's bringing to her sport,
Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. More people want to watch.
There you go.
More people want to tune in. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it fucked up. Caitlin Clark is the reason why a lot of great things is going to happen for the WNBA.
Good for you, LeBron.
But for her individually, I don't think she should get involved on nothing.
People should stop behaving as though Caitlin Clark is the object of special attention. She claims that it's just basketball, and anyone with working eyes can see what's really going on. The relentless intimidation, the physical hits, and the endless cheap shots. Since this isn't normal, it's a pattern, and it's personal, the internet did what the internet does and clapped back hard. The backlash was swift, vicious, and sincere. Well-deserved basketball fans from all walks of life began criticizing Hill's absurd viewpoint. Even people who don't typically support Clark could see that Hill went too far in calling this racism, which is not only incorrect but also insulting to real victims of racism. Rather than apologizing, they chose to say, "Hey, maybe I got it wrong." The worst thing Jamel Hill could have done was to double down and attack everybody who didn't agree with her, claiming that they were the ones who didn't comprehend the game or the wider picture. However, the truth is that this entire situation revealed something more serious. In addition to misinterpreting the situation, Hill is promoting a narrative because she is so committed to the WNBA's concept of race and rivalry that she will use any opportunity to further her agenda, even if it means distorting the straightforward statement, "I'm not scared of you," into something offensive.
By these WNBA players is rhetorical. They making it their business, one player on the team, every game she played, to attack her, bro. Who knows who it's going to be tomorrow for the New York Liberty? But I bet you any amount of money, somebody's going to make it their day.
Let's address the true racism in this situation because, while there is racism, it comes from people like Gilly Hill who believe that if a white player and a black player clash, it must be about race. This assumption is racism because it judges someone's intentions based only on the color of their skin, and that is exactly what Hill is doing in the footage. Clark maintained his composure and professionalism. Sadly, this is nothing new for Jamali Hill, who has based her entire career on seeing racism everywhere, even where it doesn't exist, every time two people of different races disagree. Ryan Howard was the one who escalated the conversation and threw trash in Clark's face, but Hill couldn't see it because she had already made up her mind that Clark must be the villain because of her skin color, not because of what she did, but because of how she looks. Hill continues to shout racism from the rooftops despite the facts to the contrary, but this time she went too far in condemning racism over a player who simply confronted a bully. This is not only wrong, but it's damaging, making people stop listening even when real racism needs to be called out. It's the boy who cried wolf, but now that people are ignoring Hill completely, even though she may have a valid point, her reputation is too damaged due to actions like this, which distort facts to fit a narrative, and the worst part is that the timing couldn't be worse given everything that is going on in the WNBA right now.